Hey friends, welcome back to The Rogue Educator, where we talk about all things education, wellness, and story. My name's Katie, and I'm glad you're here. Today, I thought I would take you through a little brief tour of the magazines that I subscribe to. And I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. One, I have always just loved magazines. I think they're a really good medium for going in depth on certain topics and getting information regarding the news and current events without being sort of overwhelming or sound bitey. I like my information to come in a little bit more depth than just, the CNN or local news websites. Another reason I like magazines is that they are shorter than books, and you can often read some really interesting articles on different but related topics within a short period of time, and it doesn't take as long to read, as a book. And another thing is, I feel like magazines are sort of a lost medium among my age group. I feel like we turn very quickly to our cell phones or to books, and magazines are kind of lost in the shuffle. When I was in grade school, our biggest fundraiser of the year was a magazine drive. And I remember going door to door in my parents' neighborhood and selling magazine subscriptions. And it was just always really interesting, the variety of topics and magazines that were available. My next door neighbor would always subscribe to the New Yorker. I almost didn't have to actually go to his door to sign him up. I just knew that's what he would want. And just for years and years. And, the prizes for this magazine drive were excellent as well. But it just kind of opened my eyes to the concept of magazines. And as I got older, I subscribed to kids' magazines for a long time. And then I started subscribing to writing magazines. And now I've kind of branched out into some sort of fashion and political magazines, and I still subscribe to writing magazines, and then also history and or science. And over the years, a few of them have remained constant, and some of them have interchanged, from year to year. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you the magazines that I subscribe to right now, and maybe this will become a fairly regular thing where I update you on what I'm reading. So here we go. Okay, so the first two magazines that I subscribe to and have been for several years are writing-related magazines. I have wanted to be a writer since about the second grade, and I published my first book about 2 years ago, just self-published on Amazon. It's called Out of All Eternity, Handmade and Handpicked for Right Now. And it was sort of based on a graduation speech that I gave. But anyway, so that was sort of a big bucket list thing for me. And these magazines have inspired me along the way. So the first one is Poets and Writers. And this is sort of the two, I would consider the more elite, intellectual, academic style writing magazine. Usually features a profile or an interview or something like that of a debut author or an author making big strides in the sort of upmarket literary fiction scene or the poetry scene. And I always find it really interesting and inspiring in terms of, writing at a really high level. And most of the ads in this magazine are for residencies or Masters of Fine Arts in Writing all over the country. And, that's kind of a long-term bucket list for me. But I just really enjoy reading about what people are doing in the urban centers of our country or the rural ones to really push literacy and writing and things like that. And just make people think at a higher level and think critically through writing. So that's what I like about this one. And I like that it focuses a lot on poetry because that is not a genre that I am especially adept at writing or reading. So I'm always kind of inspired to read more poetry after every issue of this magazine. So Poets and Writers, highly recommend if you are interested in that kind of thing. So yeah. The second magazine that I subscribe to that is writing related is Writer's Digest. And again, I've been getting this one for a long, long time. And for a while after we moved, I was getting it in both places. So I was getting it twice. I really like this magazine. And this magazine is much more practical, down to earth, just really, like practical hands-on advice for just the regular writer. The writer trying to write their first book, all the way up to writers that are trying to build routines and be really productive. So this issue is the big idea issue, and I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to dive into it. All right, next up, the next two magazines are totally different, and I like them obviously for very different reasons. They are not writing related. Let's just jump into it. The first one is Smithsonian Magazine, and I subscribed to this a long time ago for maybe a year or two. Probably like right out of college. And then I just, magazines.com was having a huge sale. So this was a really affordable subscription rate. So I thought I would jump back into it. I got my college degree in history with an emphasis in American history. And also, as I have grown older, I've developed a real interest in science. So Smithsonian Magazine is kind of a little bit of both. I also love the Smithsonian museums in Washington, D.C., so I was kind of inspired by that too. But so this magazine usually features something scientific and or historical and or, global current events, and kind of delves into it and then offers a lot of side articles on related things. So this one, the big article is talking about landing on the moon. And I've read the beginning of this article, and it's talking about just the fact that we knew nothing about what to expect on the moon. We didn't know how to prepare. We didn't know, what to put on our packing list because nobody had ever been to space before. And it was talking specifically about lunar dust and how no one knew the properties of it, and they were a little bit concerned about how it would be. It could be potentially flammable and maybe ignite when they got back on the Apollo mission ship. And I just thought that was really interesting. So that was the big article in this one. And then there are also a couple of other articles on dinosaurs and fossils and things like that. So a little bit history, a little bit science, just really gets my brain going in this in this otherwise pretty mundane season of stay-at-home motherhood. So so Smithsonian Magazine. And lastly, the last magazine that I subscribe to is something completely different, Vanity Fair. Where are we? Okay, there we go. Vanity Fair is a little bit political and a little bit Vogue. So I enjoy the political articles. I think they add a lot of depth to what I see on my regular news feed websites. And I also just love the fashion. And it's an interesting combination. And I like it because it gives some credibility. Well, not credibility. It gives some, it just validates the fact that people who enjoy fashion can also enjoy in-depth conversations about current events and politics and how the world is changing and just heavier topics like that. It's a good mix. So Vanity Fair. I fell in love with Vanity Fair the year that Deep Throat did his big expose or big interview, I guess. Vanity Fair had the exclusive on that, and I remember picking it up on our way to a camping trip and sitting around the campfire and just being totally enthralled with the story of Nixon and Deep Throat and Watergate and just all of that intrigue, I guess. And then to mix it together with, high fashion photos like from Vogue or Elle or something like that. I was hooked. And so fast forward several years and I realized I could afford a subscription to Vanity Fair and I took advantage of that. So here we are. So those are the magazines that I am currently subscribing to. And they're just a nice in between reading the news on my phone and reading a long book on a particular topic. And the other thing I was going to say is I thought for a while in college that I wanted to go into magazine journalism. And, it turns out I really was not a fan of interviewing people. So obviously that career choice was not going to work for me. But I will still gladly subscribe and gladly read magazines. It's always going to be my favorite genre of or medium for getting my information. So yeah, what are some magazines that you guys subscribe to? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.